There comes a moment when you realize you can't keep holding on, not because you don't care, but because caring has become exhausting. You've spent so much time trying to understand them, excusing the distance, convincing yourself that if you just loved them enough, they would finally let you in. But the truth is, they never do. And now, you're left with the hardest question of all. How do you let go of someone who never fully held on to you? How do you walk away without drowning in guilt? Because the pain isn't just about losing them, it's about losing yourself in the process. But hear me when I say this. Detaching isn't abandoning them. It's reclaiming yourself. And by the time you reach the end of this, you won't just understand why you need to let go. You'll know exactly how to do it in a way that sets you free. You tell yourself it's time, that you've waited long enough, that you deserve more than someone who only meets you halfway, who holds you just close enough to keep you from leaving, but never close enough to make you feel safe. You stand at the edge of letting go, convinced that this time you will finally do it. But then something stops you. It's not love that keeps you here. It's the part of you that still believes you almost had it. That if things had played out just a little differently, if you had been a little more patient, if they had been a little more ready, maybe you wouldn't be standing in this moment, forcing yourself to walk away from someone you still wish would reach for you first. And that's what makes leaving an avoidant feel impossible. Because you're not just mourning the relationship as it was, you're mourning the version of it that you never got to have. The version where they stayed, where they let you in, where love didn't feel like something you had to earn. But you never got that version, and deep down, you know you never will. Still, you hesitate. Because every time they pull away, they always come back. Not fully, not in the way you need, but just enough to make you question everything. Just enough to make you wonder if leaving now is a mistake. If maybe you just need to hold on a little longer. Just enough to make you forget how many times you've been in this exact place before, promising yourself that next time you'll be strong enough to let go. This is what keeps you stuck. The inconsistency, the unpredictability, the rare fleeting moments when they are present, when they give you just enough to keep the hope alive. And hope is a powerful thing, but it can also be dangerous. Because when you love someone who is afraid of closeness, hope doesn't lead to happiness. It leads to waiting. Waiting for them to wake up. Waiting for them to stop running. Waiting for the day when they finally give you the love you've been giving them all along. And that day never comes, because the truth, the one you don't want to admit, is that they aren't just afraid of love. They are afraid of your love. Because your love asks them to be open, to be vulnerable, to stay. And staying has never been something they know how to do. So you stand in this space, torn between what you know and what you wish could be true. But if you've ever needed a sign, here it is. The fact that you are even questioning whether you should stay means you already know the answer. Walking away isn't impossible. It just feels that way because a part of you still wants to believe in them, more than you believe in yourself. But maybe it's time for that to change. It feels like love. It convinces you it's love. But what if everything you're holding on to isn't real love at all? Just the illusion of it. Because real love doesn't leave you questioning your worth. It doesn't make you feel like you're standing outside a locked door, waiting for someone to let you in. It doesn't disappear the moment you reach for it, only to reappear when you've finally started to move on. But the illusion? The illusion keeps you trapped. It feeds you just enough hope to keep you believing. It makes you hold on to potential instead of reality, to the version of them you saw in glimpses, but never in full. And that's the cruelest part of loving someone who keeps their heart at a distance. You don't fall in love with who they truly are. You fall in love with who you believe they could be. It's a dangerous kind of love, the kind that convinces you that just because they let you in sometimes, it must mean something. That just because they pulled you close before pushing you away again, it must have been real. And so you cling to those fleeting moments, the ones that felt like warmth in a cold relationship, mistaking them for proof that love still exists beneath all the distance and inconsistency. But if that love was real, why did you always feel like you were chasing it? Why did you have to keep proving your worth just to get the smallest taste of something that should have been given freely? Love isn't something you should have to earn, but with them, it always felt like a test, a series of trials where you had to be patient enough, understanding enough, low maintenance enough, perfect enough, just to be let in for a little while. And that's why letting go feels impossible. Because you're not just grieving the person, you're grieving the story you told yourself. The version of them that never fully existed. The fantasy of what this love could have been, if only things were different. And that fantasy, that's what keeps you here. That's what makes you check your phone, replay old conversations, analyze every moment, searching for signs that maybe, just maybe, they loved you too. But love, real love, doesn't feel like this. It doesn't feel like guessing games. It doesn't feel like waiting for someone to wake up and realize you're worth staying for. It doesn't feel like convincing yourself that almost is enough. And yet you hold on. Not to them, but to the illusion of them. To the moments when they were soft. To the times they showed up just long enough to remind you of what could be. To the idea that deep down they must care, because if they didn't, why would they keep coming back? But that's the trick, isn't it? The illusion of love keeps you believing that just because they return, it must mean something. But coming back is not the same as staying. Reaching for you when they feel lonely is not the same as choosing you. And what you're holding on to isn't love. It's the hope that one day this person will become someone they have never been. So ask yourself, what are you really holding on to? The person in front of you? Or the version of them you created in your mind? Because deep down, you already know the answer. And deep down, you already know that real love isn't something you have to beg for, wait for, or suffer for. Real love stays. Real love chooses you. And if you have to keep convincing someone to love you, they were never yours to begin with. At first, you tell yourself you can handle it. That if you just give them time, if you're patient enough, understanding enough, things will change. But there comes a point where even the strongest heart grows tired. Not because you stopped caring, but because caring has become too painful. You don't walk away because you want to. You walk away because you have to. Because staying means losing yourself in the process, bending and shrinking into someone unrecognizable, just to fit into a space that was never meant for you. And yet, even as you pull away, guilt lingers like a shadow, whispering that leaving makes you the one who gave up too soon. But how much longer were you supposed to wait? How many more times were you supposed to excuse the distance, the inconsistency, the emotional unavailability? Loving them was never the problem. The problem was believing that your love alone could fix what they refused to heal within themselves. Guilt convinces you that if you had done more, been more, things would be different. But deep down, you know that's not true. Because love isn't about endurance. It isn't about proving your worth through suffering. And yet, that's exactly what this connection made you feel, that your ability to endure their coldness, their silence, their push and pull, somehow defined your value. So, how do you emotionally detach without guilt? How do you walk away without carrying the weight of regret? You start by recognizing that you were not the reason for their walls. You could have been perfect in every way, and it still wouldn't have changed the way they kept you at a distance. Not because you weren't enough, but because they never intended to let anyone close enough to touch the parts of them that were broken. Then, you stop waiting for closure, because closure isn't something they will ever give you. Not because they don't owe it to you, but because they don't even understand themselves enough to explain why they keep running. The real closure happens the moment you decide you don't need their permission to move on. And most importantly, you stop making exceptions. If you leave the door even slightly open, they will always find a way to pull you back in. Just enough to make you doubt yourself. Just enough to make you believe that maybe this time will be different. But it won't. And the longer you leave space for them, the longer you delay your own healing. So if guilt is what's keeping you stuck, ask yourself this: what are you really feeling guilty for? For wanting to be loved fully? For needing more than half-hearted affection? For finally choosing yourself after waiting for someone who never truly chose you? That isn't guilt. That's awakening. That's the moment you finally understand that leaving wasn't a betrayal. It was an act of self-respect. And that is nothing to feel guilty about. You wake up one morning and for a split second, everything feels normal. Then it hits you, the weight of absence, the void they left behind. It's over. You made the decision to walk away. And yet, instead of relief, there's something else sitting in your chest. Guilt, regret, doubt. Your mind plays tricks on you. It replays the moments when they were kind, when they held you close, when they made you believe they might finally be ready. And then comes the most dangerous question of all. Did I make a mistake? This is the part nobody warns you about. The way guilt creeps in, whispering that maybe you should have stayed. Maybe you should have tried harder. Maybe they weren't as incapable of love as you thought. Because when you look back, you don't just remember the pain. You remember the promise, the potential, the brief moments when they seemed like the person you always believed they could be. But regret is a liar. It tells you that if you had done things differently, the ending wouldn't have been the same. But deep down, you know the truth. This ending was inevitable. You didn't walk away because you wanted to. You walked away because you had no choice. Because staying meant continuing to lose pieces of yourself while waiting for someone who never fully chose you. So why does the guilt still exist? Because part of you is still trying to rewrite the story. You don't want to accept that all the effort, all the love, all the patience didn't change the outcome. You wanted it to mean something. But here's the hard truth. It did mean something. It meant you loved fully. It meant you gave them a chance. It meant you did everything you could. And now, the lesson is this. Your love was never the problem. They weren't distant because you weren't enough. They didn't pull away because you failed them. They ran because they were never capable of staying, and nothing you could have done would have changed that. The guilt you feel isn't a sign that you should have stayed. It's a sign that you are healing, that you are unlearning the belief that love should be measured by how much you endure, that you are finally understanding that you did your best, and your best was enough, even if they never saw it. So let's settle this once and for all. Take a deep breath. Write down everything you did for them, every moment of patience, every sacrifice, every time you softened your boundaries just to keep them close. Now ask yourself, was that enough? Yes, it was. Now walk away. There's a difference between leaving someone physically and leaving them emotionally. You can block their number, delete their photos, remove every trace of them from your life, and yet they still linger. Not in your reality, but in your thoughts, in the quiet moments when you're alone, in the memories that refuse to let go of you even after you've let go of them. This is what makes emotional detachment the hardest part. You can walk away, but what do you do with the version of them that still lives inside you? Because that's the real struggle, isn't it? It's not just about cutting contact. It's about severing the invisible thread that still connects you, the one that tugs at your heart whenever you hear their name, whenever you pass by the places where they once made you feel safe, whenever a song plays that reminds you of the way things used to be. But here's what you need to know. That thread isn't real anymore. It only exists because a part of you is still holding on. And if you want to truly free yourself, you have to do more than just walk away. You have to close the door completely. That means no more replaying old conversations, searching for meaning in words that were never meant to give you closure. No more fantasizing about a future that was never going to happen. No more keeping the door cracked open just in case. Because even if you tell yourself you're strong enough to stay friends, to check in from time to time, to keep a small space for them in your life, the truth is, you're only prolonging your own suffering. You don't need to stay connected to someone just because you once loved them. Love doesn't mean you owe them a lifetime pass to your heart. Some doors are meant to be closed, not because you hate them, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop reopening wounds that should have healed. And I know, it's terrifying. Because cutting the final emotional ties means accepting that there's nothing left to wait for. That they are not coming back, at least not in the way you once hoped. That you will never get the closure you think you need, because the closure was never about their apology. It was about your decision to stop looking for one. So, how do you truly let go? You break the last thread. The one that keeps you checking their social media, that makes you wonder if they ever think about you, that still makes you hope that maybe one day they'll realize what they lost. You let go of the fantasy. Because as long as you hold on to the version of them that only existed in your mind, you are still in a relationship with a ghost. You write the letter you will never send. You spill out every unspoken word, every unanswered question, every lingering emotion, and then you let it go. Burn it, tear it up, throw it away. Not because they don't deserve to hear it, but because you deserve to be free from the weight of carrying it. And finally, you shift the focus back to where it should have been all along. You, your healing, your growth, your life beyond them. Because the moment you stop looking backward is the moment you start moving forward. And that is the moment you truly let go. If this resonated with you, if you felt seen, if you know deep down that it's time to break free and choose yourself, let me know in the comments. What's the hardest part about letting go for you? And if you found value in this, consider hitting the super thanks button to support more content like this. Every bit of encouragement helps bring more healing conversations to those who need it most. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, because this journey isn't just about letting go, it's about becoming who you were always meant to be. And I'll be here with you every step of the way.